Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in San Diego County today. I'm so glad that Ron Morrison is joining us. He is the mayor of National City, a wonderful city in South San Diego County, a very diverse city. A lot of folks speak language other than English, maybe Spanish, maybe other languages. Tell us about the rich diversity of National City.
Well, it is. I mean, it's probably the most diverse city in this county and certainly within our region. As far as population goes, it is 63% Hispanic, 20% Filipino American.
Filipinos.
Yes,
right.
And then has the largest concentration of Filipino Americans in any city. And then also has 10% African American. I'm basically what's left.
That's very interesting. And it's interesting that you mentioned the Filipino population, because what we're learning about immigration trends is while there's a lot of focus on immigrants from south of our border in Central America, demographically speaking, Asians are really coming to this country in much greater percentages and will soon take over Central American immigrants to this country. So it's interesting there's a lot of rhetoric surrounding south, but maybe we should be looking, is it west?
Well, and a lot of them are coming from our southern border.
Right.
And so,
but they're also coming from from Asia.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is a lot of them come, they go to Mexico first, and now they're coming up through. Yeah, Asians. So you've got a large right now Chinese population that's sitting in Tijuana trying to come across.
So let's talk about the challenges that face a city like yours.
Certainly.
We know, just presumptively, that there are a good number of your residents that may not be documented. And we know there's a lot of panic surrounding individuals that may be documented, or even those that are documented that have a relative that's undocumented. How's that playing out? What are you hearing? What do you see?
Well, there is certainly a lot of fear, and I mean, because as I say, it's a very kind of tumultuous time, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and so people have a lot of fears. We're trying to squelch a lot of those fears. One of the things we're doing is making sure through education that people know what their rights are, whether if they are documented or not documented.
Right. But I wonder how you squelch fears when some of the rhetoric coming out of Washington as it relates to deportations is very strong.
Right.
I mean, we have a new president talking about how the deportation force is going to be a military-style operation. We hear anecdotes, and there are anecdotes about a mother who got deported, a woman who has a brain tumor that's getting put into detention. I mean, the anecdotes are scary, and the rhetoric, for some, is scary.
Yes. Oh no, it definitely is, and so we're working with our population that we have there, and I say it's both documented and undocumented.
Right.
And, that have a lot of fears because of a lot of the stereotyping and everything else that goes on, and so.
So let's talk about what National City is doing.
Sure.
Because here in California, we know that the rhetoric in Sacramento is very strong against what's happening in Washington, D.C.
Correct.
But cities, counties, school districts, they can take their own positions. And so we have an administration in Washington that is saying that if any jurisdiction is a sanctuary jurisdiction, we're going to withhold federal funding. Hasn't happened yet, but that's what they're saying. Some cities are saying, okay, we don't care, we're going to call ourselves sanctuary, but that word means I don't know what.
Well, that's one of the deals. There's not a definition to it. And the other thing is it gives false hope, because it really has nothing enforceable in and of itself. You can't say that it's not going to happen. You can't say that ICE is not allowed in your city. You can't do that.
Right.
We're still part of the United States, and so you can't do that.
What's also interesting is there's so much talk about sanctuary cities and the city's interaction with law enforcement. But at least in California, cities don't deal with law enforcement that much. It's the county, and so.
Well, in our case, it does. I mean, we have our own police department.
Right, but any serious felon gets handed over to the county.
Eventually, as far as if you're going into county jail.
Right.
But and I say that's the only time that we get involved. We have a policy that, as far as for interaction with the community, interaction with individuals, whatever, we are not immigration officers as far as our peace officers.
But I must say that to the new administration, those are fighting words. I mean, they feel as if that local law enforcement, again, we don't know what's going to happen ultimately, but local law enforcement should, at a minimum, aid enforcement efforts on the immigration front.
Well, then the FBI should be checking about people that are running stop signs and giving people tickets. That's not their job.
I know,
and that's not our job.
I hear you, but my question becomes, how far does a national city, or frankly any jurisdiction, take this? Because look, the new president, he was very clear in his first week. He issued an executive order putting cities and counties on notice that they would lose federal funding if they did not cooperate with immigration agents. I don't know what cooperate means. I don't think any of us know the scope of that. But wow.
Yeah. Well, in other words, if you try to stop immigration, that would be one way of not cooperating with them. You know, trying to say, okay, we're blocking you from coming in our jurisdiction, which you can't legally do.
Right.
And, you know.
But are you supposed to start asking individuals about immigration status? It seems like that's what they want localities to do.
But there's nothing in law saying that we should be doing that. There's nothing within our jurisdiction to do that. We are not a sanctuary city. We're not all these titles we put on there. But what we have decided to do.
Talk to us about the resolution.
We put out a resolution, and it basically says that we as a city, we're going to continue to be a city that's going to protect its residents and its visitors and their rights. And so everyone has constitutional rights regardless of their status. Everyone is due process. And we want to make sure that those things happen and that people are not unnecessarily harassed or whatever.
And you focused on a few issues, dealing with warrantless searches, dealing with the definition of where the borderline is, because there's a federal law that gives more jurisdiction depending on how close.
Well, less rights.
Less rights.
Basically less rights, which, you know, there's always a big question about that. And then the other thing is on profiling.
Right.
And and the other thing is, the last thing you want is people that are afraid to come forward, like to a police officer, and say, "Hey, I witnessed a crime over there."
But here's, I mean, I recently read that United States Senator Kamala Harris made a statement, and the statement was that Latinos, 40% of Latinos are less likely to, I think, call 911 if they see a crime. And PolitiFact is it true? And they said it's mostly true. And so, we're hearing anecdotally and through statements like that the Latino community is they're scared to interact with law enforcement. And
that's the reason why we've assured, within our population, that we are not, that's not our action. We want to make sure of their safety regardless of what their status is. I mean, we have people throughout our community. I mean, a lot of people talk about the crime rates with undocumented and everything else. We haven't seen that issue in our community.
Well, objectively, crime rates amongst immigrants, documented or undocumented, are lower. It's just a fact vis-a-vis those that are natural-born citizens.
Right.
So, but facts are getting conflated.
Yeah, you get a lot of false facts out there. We have a community, we have people, and you don't know if the person living next to you, what their documentation is or not. These are families, and they are productive parts of our community. They are positive parts in our community, and we're not going to go out there and start trying to rip people apart.
So how far does the city go? I mean, if the new administration starts to say, we know you're not calling yourself sanctuary, but it's close enough, we're pulling your federal funding unless you revoke that. Do you go all the way?
And I say that's going to get really rough, because in our case, we do about $11 to $12 million a year in federal funding. Plus, the other thing is, even if they don't do the sanctuary city thing and say, if you fit on that deal, when you go for grants, they go through a department. What they do is that department takes care of all those grants together, and they take their recommendations and send it to the secretary of that department. Well, what they do is, if they've got $100 million of grants, they may give them $250 million of applications, and they arbitrarily can pick. They don't have to have a deal. So guess what? If all of a sudden, they don't like you, well, your city's out, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, let's talk more about it the next time you come back.
Absolutely.
He is Ron Morrison. He is the mayor of National City in San Diego County, where we are today. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks for joining us on Local Edition.